Whether you're an independent filmmaker or you just love movies, don't miss these New Jersey film festivals. Brightside Tavern in Jersey City, Hang On to Your Shorts in Asbury Park, and Round Reel in Bloomfield. Submission information for filmmakers can be found at filmfreeway.com. Single Bound is a new podcast series hosted by married couple Amy and Logan as they review single issues of comics. And if the title makes you think of Superman, you're not alone, as the Man of Steel is a regular topic of discussion. Listen and subscribe on Spotify and YouTube, and follow the show on Instagram at Single Bound Podcast. In the 1950s, George Reeves embodied the Man of Steel in Superman's first television adaptation, from its gritty black and white beginnings to the kid-friendly color years. To this day, an entire generation reveres George as their Superman, while for others, the show remains an overlooked, underrated chapter in the character's history. On this podcast, we bring everyone together as we break down each episode of Adventures of Superman, examining it within the context of the series itself, as well as the larger Superman mythology. Welcome to another exciting episode in the Adventures of Superman. I'm your host, Anthony Desiato. Joining me to discuss Season 3, Episode 6, Test of a Warrior, is Editor-in-Chief of 13th Dimension, returning guest, Dan Greenfield. Welcome to the color era, my friend.
Thank you, Anthony. Glad to be here.
Yes, I'm particularly curious why you chose this episode to discuss, and I'm excited to get into it. So in this episode, Superman helps an elderly Native American named Great Horse cheat his way through a gauntlet of tests to become chief of the tribe. It aired on May 28th, 1955, written by Leroy Zarin, directed by George Blair. Our guest cast included Maurice Jarre as Red Hawk, Francis McDonald as Great Horse, Ralph Moody as Okati, the Medicine Man, and George Lewis as John Hancock. So let me toss it to you first, kind of overall impressions, and like I said, just kind of why this was one of the ones that you wanted to dive into. Just curious.
Well, I don't know if because it was there. I think is because it was on the list. And I remember the first time I watched it when I did my full watch of this show years back. I remember really enjoying it, and I do enjoy it. And the reason I enjoy it is for all of its obvious faults. And I'm not going to belabor any of those really, because I think that's kind of pointless. It's a Silver Age Superman comic book story, really. You know, I mean, I can even imagine the Kurt Swan, or maybe it's a Jimmy Olsen comic. But I can imagine the cover of like Jimmy being in trouble with the Native Americans, and Superman, Chief Superman, and they oversell it on the cover, and then the story inside, but him doing all of his little tricks to help this guy pass all of his tests, and there's something very, very charming about the whole thing. And it's also a good showcase, because I like any of the episodes that have a real good showcase for Superman's abilities, because the budget was so low, and so when you have an opportunity for him to kind of show off, I like that too. That's charming.
Sure. And when we get to the point where he's chopping down the tree for Great Horse, that was a cool bit. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
That I don't know that I'll have too many other highlights from this episode. I agree.
Highlights is a strong word.
I do agree with you. We don't need to beat up on the show for its depiction of the Native American tribe. Obviously, they didn't have actual Native Americans in those roles, and you see them being pretty gullible, easily fooled by our characters, including Jimmy, when he makes it seem like he's controlling the lightning, but he's really setting off these flash bulbs. But whenever we run into this stuff, though, it's always, we just kind of acknowledge, and it's a product of its time, and we leave it at that.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing, because remember, this was the 1950s, and it's like they walked back into the the stereotypical 1800s or something. It's like it's almost like a time warp, except for the spokesman for the tribe who comes to see Perry White, which is completely different than the rest of the tribe. But yeah, putting all of that aside, there's also a little bit of a pulp element to it. Like whenever they do these types of shows, like you say, they're the obvious the obvious things that don't wash today. You know, taking it in the context of its time, it's a fun story, and it also you put it into the context of what television was at the time, and television at the time is dominated by westerns, just dominated by westerns. And so the idea of having a Superman Western episode is obviously something they probably felt compelled to do, given how popular Western TV shows were.
That's fair. I guess on that note, I got vastly more mileage out of The Bully of Dry Gulch than I did of this. But yes, I agree. They're tapping into that, and there's something to be said for it. And your point is well taken too about the emissary who is sent to Perry White's office, and I think you do get a good bit of nuance there and a little bit of insight into the differing philosophies in the tribe. So there was something there.
But I also do like that even though it's stereotypical, I do appreciate Perry, who's the curmudgeon, is completely into this guy's story. All he doesn't like injustice. He doesn't like, he doesn't say anything like Perry. You're always waiting for him to say something like terrible. He doesn't, but you're kind of waiting for it. And he's just like, oh, well, I want to have a seat. Very welcoming, very, very not, basically he's not a racist, and that's great. And I like the fact that the subtext of the show, of course, is while it is showing Native Americans in a very stereotypical light, it also is it for its time, it takes a progressive point of view.
Yeah, fair. I think the problem I had with this, and maybe you got a sense from the little log line that I put together for this episode, is that ultimately Superman uses his powers secretly to help this person cheat. Now, I know the idea is that, and we'll get more specific into the synopsis of this, but I know the setup for this is that he's this older member of the tribe who won't be able to survive the physical demands of this.
Right.
And he doesn't want to pass on this opportunity because this is a chance to move the tribe in a more progressive direction. Right. So I do understand that there are reasons why he can't just forego this, but I don't know. It really didn't sit right with me that that Superman used his powers in that way. And I know they tie this into the myth that the tribe believes in about the great white bird, and then Superman does ultimately appear and reveal himself in that way. But yeah, I don't know. I'm bumping up against that.
I don't have a problem when Superman uses his powers with again, it's moral relativity. Let's put it that way. We've established pretty much that within the tribe there's good guys and not so good guys, and he's on the side of the good guys. So in that regard, given what he's got, he's gonna okay, I got to make sure the good guys win, and if that means cheating for a good reason, I don't think. Look, it's not like he killed someone at the top of a mountain. He's not guilty of murder, which he already was guilty of. We know that. But this to me is it's the Superman equivalent of a little white lie.
All right, fair enough. And it does become clear as the story progresses that Okati, the medicine man, is stacking the deck against him, right? Yeah. Especially when we get to the bit about the black smoke and everything. So there's some shady business, maybe, certainly on that side. So maybe that also helps justify Superman's actions. All right, let's get into this more specifically. I'll go sort of beat by beat, and we'll pause and we'll share thoughts as we have them. Sure. So as we open here, a Native American tribe's chief has passed away, and Great Horse is selected to succeed him, provided he survives the customary test of a warrior. His son, Red Hawk, is concerned that his elderly father will not survive the test, and that the tribe's medicine man, Okati, is stacking the deck against him because of their clashing worldviews. Red Hawk sends an emissary to Perry White to request help from Superman, aka the living counterpart of the tribe's mythical great white bird. So we've already hit on a couple of these things already, but anything else in those first couple of opening scenes that stood out to you?
Nope, that's that's pretty much it.
All right, we'll continue along here. While Clark is unavailable, Lois and Jimmy head to the tribe's territory to cover the story. With the first test, a blindfolded fight with a bear in a cave about to begin, Jimmy stalls for time, earning his place in the tribe by smoking a pipe and setting off flashbulbs, aka controlling the lightning. Jimmy, rather than Great Horse, dons the blindfold and heads into the cave to fight the so-called bear. In reality, one of the tribesmen with bear-like gloves. Superman arrives in time to jump the bear from behind and declaw him. I felt like it was a bit of a cop-out to have the bear.
It wasn't really a bear?
Yeah. Well, okay.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
No, I don't mean to beat up on this, but it's just they're trying to sell us on the fact that, like, this guy's dad is going to keel over any second if he has to do this, right? Now, first of all, he doesn't seem that old to me. I don't know how old he's
I know.
be.
And that's the other thing. He's not that decrepit. No.
Right. I mean, I could see if they really pushed it.
He's probably younger than me.
I wonder. Yeah, I guess we could have looked at the actor's age, but so there's that. So they're trying to sell you on the fact, like, this guy, he's about to kick it any second now. And yes, in fairness, when we get to the final test with the black smoke, there's an element of poison there. So that's something else. But here it's like, it's just a guy with these gloves and not particularly vicious. He's mostly standing in the corner.
Yeah.
It's funny. He's trying to mimic the sound of a bear. My wife happened to be walking by as I was watching. She's like, is he snoring? What is he doing? I'm like, no, like. So I don't know.
You know, the comments of spouses when they walk by when we're watching these shows, there should be a supercut of those.
Well, it was funny because
my wife will do the same thing. She'll go, "What?" And I'm like, shh, leave it alone.
Yeah. Well, when she first came by, it was Jimmy talking to the tribesmen about becoming part of the tribe. And she just, she saw Jimmy and she saw all these traditional Native American, and she was like, oh no, like, what are they doing? I'm like, I said, they've done worse. Don't worry about it.
I know. My wife will do this and she'll walk by and she'll go, oh no. Anyway. I'm not bothered by any of it. And I'll tell you, because the show, again, this is one where I take it in the vein in which it was ended. Yes, it is a cop-out that it's not a bear, because what do you expect, that the person dressed as a bear is actually going to kill the guy? That doesn't really add up. I don't think, but I don't want to think about it too much. I do like that it's Jimmy in peril. And the reason is because, as I've said before, that Jack Larson was the show's secret weapon. He was great. And this is why I was trying to think before, is this a Jimmy Olsen comic story, or is it a Superman comic story? Because Superman really only shows up at the end. It's really a lot of Lois and Jimmy, in the village or wherever, trying to stall for time. So whenever Jimmy does something really stupid, and then you're just waiting for Superman to show up and save him at the last minute, I'm in favor of that, because Jack Larson knew how to sell these scenes, and I always think that's an underrated part of any of these episodes.
This podcast is an affiliate of BCW Supplies. The next time you need to restock on comic book bags, boards, boxes, and more, be sure to use promo code FSP to save 10% on your order. That's FSP for Flat Squirrel Productions. It helps support the show too. Thank you. If you have children and want a family-friendly store, look no further than Aw Yeah Comics. Visit one of their 3 locations, Harrison, New York, Muncie, Indiana, or Skokie, Illinois, and check out awyeahcomics.com for more. Their name says exactly how they feel about it. Aw yeah. My love of the TV series Smallville is well documented, and there's one rewatch podcast that's always at the top of my queue, Zach Moore's Always Hold On to Smallville, which continues with more great Smallville and Superman talk now that their series rewatch has concluded. Listen wherever you get podcasts. Fat Moose Comics, established in 1982, is New Jersey's best and oldest comic book store. Moose has that rare, old-school comic shop feel and camaraderie, yet also remains a welcoming space for new fans. Visit them in person in Whippany, New Jersey, or reach out via the Fat Moose Comics Facebook page. No, your point is well taken. I had a similar thought, because it is fairly deep into the proceedings before Superman arrives.
Yeah.
So yeah, you could make an argument this is more of a Jimmy story. I actually thought they would push the Jimmy part of it further. have him prove himself in more ways, or then
I thought so too.
Or then continue, because after this first test where he takes the place of Great Horse, then Great Horse continues along with the tree and I thought that this was going to be, because it had been a while since I watched it. I forgot all the specific beats. So I was kind of thinking like, oh, like maybe Jimmy continues along, but obviously they didn't go that way, but they could have. Next, Great Horse is meant to chop down a tree with an axe, which apparently will cause him to keel over any second. A surreptitious Superman sneaks in to karate chop the tree while Jimmy distracts the tribe by taking their picture. Finally, Superman secretly rigs the final test, the black smoke, by using his X-ray vision to burn away the poison. At last, the Great White Bird is called to reveal and prove himself, which Superman does by walking unharmed through a series of blows and setting dynamite off in the clouds, causing much-needed rain. So what'd you make of these last couple of tests here?
Yeah, I mean, these are just, again, this is Superman showing off, and this is the writers giving a bunch of things for Superman to do, and in a sense the storyline at this point is sort of a it's a MacGuffin. I mean, really, what we're here to see is Superman do cool stuff. I didn't realize that his X-ray vision could burn anything because he didn't have heat vision on the show. So I guess, it kind of makes sense because I guess X-rays, there's radioactivity, I guess, somewhere in there. I don't, science is lost on me. I am a primitive man. And I'm just a simple caveman. But no, I like this. And I love the chopping down the tree. And I love him making it rain and all that stuff. I mean, this episode to me is for all the faults that we've pointed out, I just look at it as a delight. It was kind of surprised. I went into it with, I remember really the first time I saw it, I was like, oh no, here we go. And then as it kept going, I was like, oh no, this is fun. This is just a fun story. And it's just, it's getting to see Superman do the cool stuff and come in at the end, and he's all arrogant too about the whole thing. I mean, he's really arrogant. He's like, ha ha ha, nothing you will do will harm me. He doesn't say that, but that's kind of his haughty attitude, which George Reeves would sell well. I mean, George Reeves could, his Superman was never humble. He was humble. He was humble when people would lavish praise on him, but when it came to anybody challenging his abilities, it was always like, are you kidding me? He always had to look like, oh, or if he was really angry, he'd show his anger, which was great. But yeah, no, I just think it's a fun sequence to, for the writers to be able to say, okay, let's have him do this. Let's have him do that. Let's have him do the other thing. And so I totally ride with it.
All right. Yeah, fair enough. I mean, if I do have to single out moments that worked for me, yeah, this display of powers at the end with the tree and then making it rain, I did think that was cool. I mean, not to overthink this, but what do you think the tribe specifically thinks of Superman? Because again, there's this whole business about the Great White Bird and him being the living counterpart. When the emissary comes to Perry White, he does speak of Super. So I'm just kind of curious, like what if any knowledge they have of Superman? Do they kind of know him for who he is, but think he's also this living counterpart? Or do they really not have the frame of reference for this world, this global superhero, but they really just think of him in that mythical context?
I think of him more in the mythical context, except maybe the emissary himself. Again, he's shown to be the most, and the son are shown to be the most modern thinking. So there may be some awareness. I guess the way I took it was there was an awareness that there is some being out there who works for good and has great power. And so therefore he must be the embodiment of this Great White Bird. So when he does show up, I don't think they're necessarily thinking of him as, who are you in the blue suit? It's like, oh, okay, so this is what he looks, we get to see him up close. This is who he is. And they just kind of accept it based on the context. That's sort of how I read it.
Gotcha. And then finally, back at the office, Perry is bestowed a traditional headdress and for once allows Jimmy to call him Chief.
Because it's fitting, isn't it?
I'm glad. You know what? All right, this is another highlight, because for all of the business about don't call me Chief, if they had not done this. I feel like it would have been a huge missed opportunity. So I'm glad.
Yeah, they had to
do this.
Yeah, it was almost like a precursor to Great Caesar's Ghost. You know, in that way, it was like that's the button. You know, that was the comedic button, and it's good. And I also like how Perry is being good natured about the whole thing. And yeah, no, it's again from beginning to end. This episode for me has a certain sweetness to it that, for lack of a better term, that I think just makes me overlook. I mean, you made some very clear points about where the storytelling kind of drops out, but I'm having such a good time. It doesn't matter to me. And sometimes when I watch these shows, particularly when you're talking about shows in the 50s, 60s, whatever, you have to. I judge them on a curve. You know, and again, for me, everything reverts to Batman, but it's the same thing. If there are people who just like absolutely drive themselves mad about the Batman surfing episode, which I think is absolutely a scream because it's so damn funny. It doesn't matter to me how can you judge anything? The entire everything is outlandish, so it's just more outlandish and it's fun. So something like this, it's a nice. It's just a nice, sweet story with likable elements where Superman gets a showcase, and and then they get a cute ending, and next week he'll be fighting mobsters again.
Sure, and it is a bit of a change of pace. We're not in mobster territory, so there's something to be said for that. I feel like this is not dissimilar from when we talked about the Ghost for Scotland Yard, and you got you got a lot more mileage. It found the fun in it. Whereas my enjoyment was a bit more limited, but I think part of it too is I'm going, through all of these and, really, really digging into them. And after a while, they start to pile up a little bit.
Well, that is true. See, also, I'm kind of dropping in and dropping out on these episodes. So the repetitiveness of some of it doesn't necessarily, right now is not, is kind of lost on me or what have you. But I always have. When it comes to this show, I've always enjoyed the shows where they take it out of Metropolis. I didn't do the season 1 episode Drums of Death, which also suffers from a lot of the same issues that this episode, in actually more harshly, in terms of racial depictions. But I find that a cracking good story. It is send Superman to London, send Superman to some fictional country, send Superman to this, and it adds to the global notion of Superman, which I like.
Yeah, I like that too. No, really, the biggest hang up I think I had about this episode was the quote unquote cheating aspect, but I think through our conversation, I've overcome a bit of that. I still think they should have cast someone significantly older as Great Horse just to really sell the imminent danger that this man faced. One more swing of that axe and he's done. But all that being said, you mentioned grading it on a curve. And on that note, now is the time to give our rating. So in the color seasons now, Dan, we have retired our old Fedora rating system. Yes. And we've adopted the Great Caesar's Ghost rating system for the color years so that they're really just each on their own scale. So on a scale of 1 to 5 Great Caesar's Ghosts, how many are we giving Test of a Warrior?
I guess a 3, I think. I mean, right in the middle. I mean, it's not a great episode. It's not but it's a fun episode. I don't think that any of its drawbacks are really detrimental. I think it's got a lot of charm. I think it's fun. It's a great Superman showcase. It zips along. It's not the least bit dull. So, I mean, I can't say it's a 4 or a 5 because it doesn't take it beyond anything, it doesn't go up and away, shall we say. So I'd say 3, good solid 3.
All right, I'm going 1 on this, so we're a bit far apart.
I'm losing faith in you, Anthony. I'm losing faith in you.
There are other episodes. I've been more generous with other episodes we've covered recently, and there are other episodes that you specifically are going to join me for in the future where we're going to see some much higher scores. So,
oh really? Are we? Sure. I'm not so sure about that from my point of view. So we'll have something to talk about.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I thank you so much for joining me for this. I look forward to our future color episode discussions. And what would you like to mention to folks with respect to 13th Dimension?
Well, we got Superman week coming up. We will be doing a Superman week at 13th Dimension in July for the movie. With the other than that, it's our, come check us out for all of our columnists, the news that we break, the various and sundry gags that we have, and also very proud that the DC Comics style book, style guide, has been nominated for an Eisner. And I was fortunate enough to be a part of that project. And so I'm very proud of that. And I'll be going to San Diego. Looking forward to that. So if you haven't read the book or gotten the book, go get yourself a copy. I don't get any money for it, so I'm not like looking for kickbacks or anything. I'm not looking for residuals, but it's a tremendous, tremendous book. And especially if you're a Superman fan, because, Jose Luis Garcia Lopez's art, Superman is among the best ever. And there's a ton of it in this book. So I highly recommend it.
No, that's amazing. Well, congratulations. And
Thank you.
I encourage everyone to check out that as well as the website. And thank you again for joining me. Thank you, audience. Make sure you come back next week. And until then, as always, remember, only Superman can do super things. Support the show and receive exclusive content, including the spin-off podcast Beyond Metropolis, by becoming a member at patreon.com/Anthony Desiato. My sincere thanks to all patrons. Please subscribe, rate, and review today via your platform of choice, and continue the conversation by joining us on social media. Links are in the show notes. Flat Squirrel Podcast is also home to Digging for Kryptonite, a Superman fan journey, a long-running weekly series mining Superman's vast mythology across time and media. Subscribe today.